And I'm basically like a monk. Like I consider myself kind of a postmodern monk who lives in this little cave by the beach, and I play jazz and I think deep thoughts.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hello and welcome to Here in LA, Venice edition. Yes, we've made it out of Hollywood. Today we talk to Matt Demerritt, a man who has lived in a super unique apartment just 1 block from the boardwalk in Venice, and he's lived there for 20 years. He's a jazz musician, a Buddhist, and a very deep thinker. In fact, this one is going to be mellow. So if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, because you're going to be tempted to just close your eyes and just melt into me and Matt's sexy voice. We talk about music, of course, homelessness, Google and Snapchat in Venice, and he even plays a little tune for us from his CD, Fool's Journey. So please, step into the dark, wonderful, creative vortex of Matt's bachelor bag, won't you? I am with Matt Demerritt. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
We're sitting in your studio here in the back of your apartment, 1 full block away from the beach.
About a half a block.
Block from the
from
beach.
the boardwalk.
And you've got tapestries up. You've got like Indian gurus.
It's kind of hippied out, like kind of, part of the territory, comes with the territory. I'm now somewhat closeted hippie. I used to be a little bit more out.
What put you in the closet?
Just hippies are annoying, man.
They are?
Yeah, they can. Well, they are to me. I mean, maybe it's because I've lived here so long.
How long have you lived here?
18 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. I moved
in this apartment?
In this apartment, yeah.
That is How did you find this place?
I have a friend who was managing this building and the building next door when they were both owned by this old guy named Craig, and who has since passed away.
Oh.
And the buildings were sold to a, sort of slumlordy management company. But, the law allows us to stay at the rate that we were here, and that landlord had never raised our rent. So I'm pretty old rent. So I'm kind of locked in here at a lower rate, which I can't afford to move. So I'm trapped in paradise here. But yeah, so he was a friend of mine, and he was like, "We got an apartment here. You want to apply for it?" And I applied for it, and I got it. So.
Now, I'm also in rent control in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And they are allowed to up it 3% every year.
Yeah.
Is that how it is here, too?
It's 5%.
5%?
Because they pay utilities.
Ooh.
Yeah. It might be 6, actually. It might be...
Utilities that's pretty good.
Utilities is pretty big. Yeah, so I'm fine with that.
And I don't feel like you're abusing it. That means you could have like 3 air conditioners in here if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So maybe you are a little bit still a hippie.
I'm at heart, and I'm a minimalist. I'm kind of a card-carrying minimalist, and I try to use one plastic cup and not throw it away, for years. That type. I'm sort of a little bit like that.
Were you a hippie before you moved to Venice?
I mean, hippie. I think it's probably a little more accurate to say that I'm more of a beatnik culturally. I'm a jazz musician. I grew up listening to Charlie Parker and learn how to play bebop and reading Jack Kerouac. So I tend to differentiate hippies and beatniks culturally. And I have like a picture of a guru on my wall, because I love esoteric spirituality.
Who is this guru?
This guy, his name was Ramana Maharshi. He died in like 1950, but I just love his books and his teachings. He's kind of like, it's always sort of like it's closer to Zen Buddhism than like the Hindu sort of like gushing, love and light hippie thing.
From what I understand about Zen Buddhism, you've just given me a pop quiz here.
Yeah.
It's about emptiness.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way emptiness.
No, it's good emptiness.
Which is if your mind is open to anything.
Yeah.
And you're really putting nothing none of your projections into the scene,
Right.
then good things will happen.
Well, and to even you take it further, good things already are. It's just everything is already fine. It's just that our minds make it not fine. I think it's probably a more accurate way of putting it. And also, good things will happen. Well, like a Zen person might say, let's take that away too, and then what are you left with? You're even more free than you realized. If you're just waiting for good things to happen, then, well, that's not very realistic, is it? Like a good Buddhist would probably say something like, a good Zen master would probably get past that whole good thing. It's just that's a hang up too.
We are here in Venice.
Yeah.
And this scene has changed a lot in 18 years since you've been here. 18 years ago was what, 2003?
Yeah, 03.
So just post 9/11, which I don't think affected Venice.
When I moved to LA, I looked at places here, which was around 97, 98, and you could still find like a little studio for like $400, $500.
How great is that?
And it was still kind of sketchy. There was like a lot of gangs activity and shootings and in certain areas, and it was still a little sketchy, and it didn't start to really leave that until after 9/11. I don't know if that had anything to do with 9/11, but that seemed to be the demarcation point to when it started to gentrify.
Yeah.
And then that's when, I was living in East LA at the time, in
wow.
like El Sereno. And then the apartment just kind of fell into my lap. I had to leave there because it was sketchy, kind of like gang kind of vibe, and I didn't want to deal with that. So this place kind of fell into my lap.
So great.
So it's almost as if I just got sucked into Venice, the vortex.
So when you get almost a beachside apartment,
Yeah.
for
Not much money.
way below what it's worth, and you get rent control. A Christian would thank God.
Yeah.
What does a Buddhist do? Do you thank somebody?
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm big on just gratitude as a healthy psychological practice.
So you're grateful
I think
to the
life.
universe?
Yeah, sure. Life. How about life? Life's good. That works for me.
Just this nebulous
Or the Tao.
thing.
I love. If for me, instead of God, it's just the Tao.
I don't know what that is.
The Tao is Taoism. It's a Chinese religion. So there was Confucianism, and then there was Taoism. Those were the two branches of the major.
And it's spelled
Chinese.
Tao,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So the Tao Te Ching, and in the Tao, basically, it's non-theistic. There's no God. It's just the Tao. Sometimes is translated as the way, and yeah. So that's how I do it. It's just like thanking the Force in Star Wars, or just the flow of life, or the. To me, that just is more sensible and rational. I'm kind of like, if you're like kind of a card-carrying rationalist, then Christianity doesn't really work, or most religions don't really work. But Buddhism and Taoism, and actually Zen Buddhism was actually basically when the really, really kind of esoteric Buddhism traveled from India to Japan. It passed through China and basically was married to Taoism. So those two philosophies kind of were married together and became Zen. And in China it was called Chan. So Zen actually originated in India, but it flowered in China and then finally went to Japan. So when I'm thanking, my version of thanking God is thanking the Tao, the flow of life. To me, that's more rational. I can't get with some anthropomorphic God. It's not rational at all.
I don't see any. I guess there's a little percussion instrument, or are those flutes?
Those are bamboo flutes.
So I don't see any percussion. So you don't join the drum circles?
No, I have percussion. I have a shaker.
Oh, there we go.
No, I don't do the Venice drum circle because it's just a little bit of cacophonous. I prefer to play with professionals if I'm going to do drum circle. But, I used to go down and play for a Afro-Brazilian dance class, which was all professional percussionists. Yeah, the Venice drum circle, that's music therapy. It's not really what I'm... As a musician, it doesn't really do it for me. It's good. I support it.
You've been spoiled.
I'm spoiled from playing with world-class musicians.
Right.
It's hard to go and do amateur hour after. I'm sorry to say. I will. It's fun. It's not like it's not. It's fun to go in. Actually, I'd rather go and take pictures of it, if anything. That's I have a hobby. That's like one of my hobbies. So.
Well, I mean,
and I'm an amateur at that. So
there's no more photogenic place than Venice Beach.
It's kind of like street photographer's wet dream around here.
You can't lose. Plus, the lighting is perfect.
The lighting's great. Yeah.
People from all around the world.
Yep.
And then you got the freaks.
Yep.
So you can't lose. And and I feel like when people are on, there's debate on whether or not to call this the boardwalk or not.
Oh.
Because it's not really a boardwalk. It's a sidewalk.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is a sidewalk. Yeah. And so, but I feel like when people are on the sidewalk.
It kind of functions as a boardwalk, I guess.
Oh, for sure. But they aren't going to be uptight if you take a picture of them.
Depends on who it is.
Oh.
Yeah. Like, generally the homeless people or gangsters don't like having their picture taken. I've found out. And with the threat of my life.
All right, well, let's talk about the homeless real quick because there's been a lot of change in Venice in the last little while. Maybe in due part to the sheriff.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe his presence alone inspired people to up their game a little bit as far as moving the homeless off of Venice Beach.
Hard to say. I can't really. I haven't formulated an opinion about what the cause was. I mean, the sense I get is that they were kind of planning on cleaning it up anyway. After the pandemic started to sort of kind of wound down, and what the sheriff was doing was more about optics. That's the other side of it. That the one side of it is that the sheriff was like, well, I'm going to go in there and make something happen because whoever's in charge isn't doing anything. That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is that it was optics, and that the sheriff came in to just look like John Wayne and look like that he was the one fixing the problem because there's an election coming up or whatever. It's hard to say. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really care as long as the problem gets fixed because it really has been like Mad Max around here. It's been lawless and dangerous.
Well, tents catching fire.
It's
dangerous for everybody.
And even a house caught on fire. Which
nearby?
Just over by where your car's parked. A back house, like a guest house. And, it's believed that it was started by one of the homeless people living in the park. No proof, but probably because they were having problems and confrontations and whatnot. So a lot of tent cities which have, tents on every sidewalk and all along the boardwalk. And then, of course, we already have several kind of designated skid rows. And it's just been dirty and drug-ridden and more crime. I had my catalytic converter stolen out from underneath my car, and there was this rash of catalytic converter thefts. And, it's been kind of been just sketchy. I haven't felt in danger in my life or anything, but it's like, wow, this is the old Venice in a way, but worse, because we never had this many homeless people.
Well, and it's bad for everybody because it's
bad for them, for homeless, and it's bad for the people who live here. It's bad for the tourists, and it's just unhealthy all around.
So I understood that, and I'm probably wrong, so please correct me.
Mm-hmm.
I understood that one of the reasons that the tents popped up here was a few years back, there was a proposal to have a place set aside for the homeless in Venice. Mm-hmm. And the locals,
you mean the bridge housing?
Yeah, and the locals didn't want it.
Well, the locals were kind of, most of the locals don't want bridge housing, I think, from who I've talked to. I mean, in principle, I supported bridge housing because I think it's a solution. It's part of the solution rather than part of the problem. But I also understand I have friends in the neighborhood who have kids. I mean, there's a schoolyard, there's an elementary school right here. And, if there's bridge housing, then it maybe attracts more homeless people. Although the sense I get, I'm not an expert on this because I don't go to the town meetings on this because I can't handle it. But
they can't either. A lot of the people of the neighborhood councils leave. They just can't. It's
chaos and it's so contentious and like in principle, the thing is like, okay, in Venice, I've always called it the ungated community because it's like everybody in, come on, everybody in. It's just a place that just culturally is okay with pretty much whoever. It attracts misfits. It's like a total island of misfit toys. And just in terms of people who live in, particularly this neighborhood where all the shitty apartments are, we're all like the last of the bohos, who are all feel like misfits and it has this spirit of like, a lot of our friends are homeless, and we don't have a problem with homeless people and we don't have a problem with anybody. Just everybody should be allowed to exist and coexist. So I love that spirit of it. But then it can also have a bit of the Peter Pan syndrome, the Neverland syndrome. And that's a problem because it's like, well, grow the fuck up. Being grown up is a good thing. It's a good thing, it's supposed to be, and staying childish is not a good, it's like, it's not healthy. You want to grow up. So that's usually my argument because a lot of maybe some of my friends, but a lot of people who live in the neighborhood are like, no, I've moved here so I don't have to grow up. So fuck you. I can do whatever I want. Well, the fuck you, I can do whatever I want is probably one of the biggest problems we have in our entire country. It's like, stop being so selfish. We're part of a greater community. So there's always this weird tension between selfishness and selflessness in any community, in any whatever church or organization you're part of. So there's the people in the community who are looking at the greater good, and then there's also the people in the community. You're constantly trying to balance the greater good. What's best for everybody. If I have kids in this neighborhood, I definitely don't want a bunch of freaking bridge housing across the street. So I get it. But the bridge housing has been there for a couple of years now, and I have friends who live across the street. They're not thrilled with it.
Oh, really?
It's like, it's just it's having the traffic of different people, homeless people going in and out of the bridge housing. It's like there's just more noise and and having just all the activity going on across the street. That part's not fun for people who live right there. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say what's working and what's not working at this point because the pandemic hit and kind of all bets were off at that point. It's like the bridge housing experiment had just started when the pandemic hit. So it's hard to really gauge at this point.
Well, the thing that worried me about how Venice, the people of Venice reacted to homelessness a couple of years ago before it really got bad.
Yeah.
It freaked me out because, like you said, if on this island of misfit toys, there isn't the loving spirit, or the welcoming spirit for a certain group, then where will that be in LA?
It's like this isn't frickin' Huntington Beach in Orange County. We're not. That's more the gated. I mean, they're not gated, but they have more of that sense of, we don't want your kind here.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to. They don't have Southern accents, but
they may as well.
They may as well. And it's like we get. I mean, Venetians get. I just call us Venetians. I guess that I don't
You are.
say that very. We're Venetians. We get grumpy. Like I'm grumpy about homeless people. Like they make me grumpy, and I'm just. But in principle, I still believe in their right to be here. But I also don't want them putting on the tent, setting up their tent at the dog park.
I get it why they don't want to have like 18 homeless guys fighting each other all night over who smoked the last bit of skunk weed.
Right.
And I also appreciate people who have children who don't want to have this going on in front of their kids. They want to walk along the boardwalk at sunset. They want to go to the good ice cream place with their kid.
Right.
And not be harassed.
Right.
And not see a fight. And not see... I mean, I have seen people with heroin needles in their arms.
Yes. I get it. Yeah, I agree. It's tricky because, I don't want to see any of that, and it pisses me off, and it makes me sad.
And so younger Tony would say, then just move to friggin' Ventura, dude.
Yeah.
Just move.
Yeah.
This is Venice. It's always been like this. This is Dogtown.
Yeah.
There's not murals of contractors on the walls. There's a mural of Jim Morrison on the wall.
Yeah.
The writing is literally on the wall. You don't belong if you think this is a safe place for children.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it ever has been.
Yeah. It hasn't.
And I get it. You want to make it that.
Yeah.
But there's also Santa Monica. Just move down there.
I have another friend who lives just here on Clubhouse across the way from me who did buy one of these huge, beautiful houses. But he's one of us. He loves, this is what he loves about Venice, is just the grit and the fucked upness part. He was a huge, he was a big supporter of the Venice Freak Show when it was open. And then he's out there protesting when Starbucks, opens like we all went out and, I mean, we're all Venetians in that sense of like kind of anti-corporate and sort of anti-establishment type, counterculture types of people. Even if we do have $2 million houses, so
refresh everybody's memory. Starbucks wanted to open up.
They did open up. They opened up a store on the boardwalk where the Venice Freak Show used to be, and so like the whole neighborhood went out and just protested and said, Get your coffee somewhere else.
Which was a block long storefront.
Yeah.
Maybe elevated one half story.
Yeah.
And the freak show was a literal freak show.
It was an actual literal freak show with like a bearded lady and two-headed snake and
which you want when you come to Venice.
Yeah, it was great.
That's what the tourists want.
And they were all friends. They were good people and my neighbor Rich was a huge. He's a filmmaker, so he I think he helped did some work with them as a filmmaker.
Tell me about this Starbucks, and I understand because I don't even drink coffee, and the reason I don't like Starbucks is old school coffee shops were the greatest.
Yeah,
you could play there as a jazz musician.
Yeah,
I could read a book back in the day at a coffee shop without being a coffee drinker. It wasn't. It was.
That's how I came up in Denver's coffee shops. Was as a jazz musician.
That's so great. And so that's why I don't like the Starbucks, because it took this very unique thing about a neighborhood. And back in the day, I mean, I sound like an old man now. Maybe I am. But back in the olden times, the neighborhoods with the cool coffee shops were cool because of the coffee shops and the record stores and maybe a head shop. But now with a Starbucks on every corner, they have homogenized that one little oasis on the corner into this just generic thing. And in LA, we've made it worse with all these drive-thrus. So now you have almost In-N-Out style lines of cars waiting for their stupid coffee.
Yeah, coffee shops are supposed to be a place of culture, and ideas. That's how they started back in Europe,
Is that what you guys were protesting when the Starbucks showed up?
Just... There's supposed to be no big corporate chains in Venice.
Oh, says who?
Says like some neighborhood rule. I don't fucking know what the legality of it is.
Is the Ben & Jerry's okay?
No, we protested that too.
Was the American Apparel okay? This was, I'm going back now, about 10 years.
I think the Pinkberry there was a Pinkberry on Abbot Kinney. And maybe the American Apparel too.
So no corporations.
No corporations allowed in Venice. God damn it! I thought you knew. It was sort of like that.
I'm trying to think of. Is there a 7-Eleven around here?
There is over on Lincoln. That's the closest 7-Eleven.
So you got to go a ways.
Yeah.
I like this.
You got to go to Lincoln to go to Whole Foods.
Right.
There's a
Jack in the Box.
Yeah,
McDonald's.
all that is on Lincoln. Lincoln's fine.
That's the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah. Well, we call it AWOL. Anything west of Lincoln is off limits.
I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, AWOL. Anything west of Lincoln. That's AWOL.
West of Lincoln.
So Venetians know that one. AWOL.
What do you think about MedMen?
MedMen, I go to Green Goddess, man, because that's like closer, it's cheaper, it's more the spirit of Venice. MedMen is like this corporate, it's more expensive, and fuck MedMen, man. I'm gonna hit the Green Goddess.
You were here before Snapchat.
Yeah. Oh Jesus, yeah, Snapchat. Thank God. We're all so happy they're gone.
Are they gone?
Yeah, they finally moved because they did own that building that the
MTV building.
No, I think what happened was
the goggles. The goggles are owned by Google, right?
No, but the goggles are that's Google. Google,
the binoculars.
The Gary building.
Yeah.
So Google, in principle, we're supposed to hate Google, but they've kept to themselves. And they've maintained a respect for their boundaries. Mainly their boundaries. They just stay in the same spot, and also they sort of are down with they're like, no, we're not going to make all those campers across the street leave. We're going to let them stay because we feel like that's more, in line with the spirit of the neighborhood. So, Google was founded by a bunch of freaks, and who
knew they got lucky.
They knew they got lucky. So, but Snapchat, and they were just downright obnoxious, and they started in Venice, so they were an actual Venice upstart. I forget where their first building was, and then they got really successful, and they just started buying up buildings all over the neighborhood and shuttling their employees around the neighborhood as if the entire neighborhood was their own personal corporate campus. And it was just obnoxious, and the whole neighborhood hated it.
What should they have done instead?
What's that?
They
should have done what Google did and just find one headquarters and stay there,
But they're growing. Should they have just moved to Culver City and gotten a
That's what
a
they finally
building?
did. They finally moved, I think, over to and got like a big corporate headquarters where they could just be in one spot because they knew that the neighborhood hated them for one. But I don't think that's why they ended up doing it. Their whole thing was just like, fuck you, we can do whatever the hell we want, which is kind of part of the spirit of Venice too, So, but it was pretty obnoxious. They just made the whole neighborhood into their corporate campus and had their own security riding around on bicycles all over the place, and they were assholes. Frankly, I had a couple run-ins, and
so you're glad to see them go.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Did you notice a difference when they left?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just nice to not have all those mountain bike security people all over the place, basically, and then all of their employees were just all these and I don't have a problem with tech workers and programmers. That's another word I heard instead of tech bros or programmers, man. But it's fine, they're not dicks or anything. I mean, they're just people who have jobs, mm-hmm. and it's cool. I mean, they're driving the rents into astronomical places, and that exacerbates the homeless problem. But that's not their fault. That's just the culture. It happened in the Bay Area.
Because let's pretend you move out of this place.
Yeah.
And I'm the landlord.
Yeah.
I remodel this, although I don't know if I'd even remodel this that much.
Nah, this one's
This is so nice.
It's kind of like has this vibe to it that was kind of it's kind of nice.
And you've taken care of it. I mean, these hardwood floors are fine.
Well, I had these put in because the ceiling was leaking so often.
Oh.
That I was just like, you know what? You better put in some laminate flooring. It's not even hardwood. It's just like waterproof laminate.
But still,
flooring.
it's nice, and
it looks good.
The carpet looks nice.
Yeah, it's fine. I wouldn't mind. The carpet's pretty old, though. I wouldn't mind switching.
But if I was the landlord, and Snapchat was still here, I would make it all real hardwood floors.
Yeah,
and I'd keep that tub. You've got a real tub in there.
The tub is the selling point, man.
It's awesome.
It's a real clawfoot tub.
You could probably jack this up to like $3,000, right?
Almost. I would say maybe 25.
25 grand.
25 to
or $2,500.
Yeah.
You can shake them down a little bit with a security deposit.
Yeah.
Make them pay first month rent and last month rent. Not going to pay electricity for a tech bro.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're going to have computers everywhere.
Yeah.
But this studio that you have is the perfect place for a guy who works at Snapchat, who doesn't want to come in the office very often.
Yeah.
In Ted Templeman's book, he was saying, I mean, this is a guy who's produced the Doobie Brothers to huge success.
Yeah.
He's a musician on his own right. In fact, it just came out that he did the drums for the Wayne's World drum solo when Garth is at a guitar store.
Oh,
that's actually Ted.
That's so good.
But Ted's argument was home studios are no good.
Yeah.
Because you need the pressure of the clock, of the deadline.
Yeah, no,
that you're spending all this money at Capitol.
Yeah.
And so you got to get it together.
That's part of the equation. You know, when you have all of these different factors that are factored in to the big equation, that's a big part of it, is the pressure, of paying for this fancy studio. That's not all of it, but that's a big part of it. And yes, I found that to be true myself in terms of like finishing my record, which I finished here. But I had a studio that I rented out for 5 days, and I had all this pressure to, we got to just strike while the iron's hot. And you create this kind of pressure cooker, this boiling cauldron of energy, and then you feed off of that energy and get good performances out of it. It's harder to get good performances when you have nothing but time on your hands.
Right.
But what I will say is the writing process, actually, I think, for me, the writing process is hindered by that pressure. So I don't like writing in the studio. I like writing in my little cubby here and taking all the time I need. My record, I spent I gave myself a year of just writing, coming up with material. And then I take all that material and I write it down and I make the charts and I make little demos. And we go into the studio. I hire all my friends, all my best musicians I can find and who will want to do it. And then we have a time limit in the studio. Everybody's getting paid, and we have a time limit where we have to strike while the iron's hot. So I think that's really, I agree. That it's harder to make a record in the home studio. But then there's always exceptions. I mean, I love Billie Eilish and Phineas, and that couldn't have been done anywhere else but with no time limit in their house in Phineas's bedroom. Because that's the way they work. That's their creative process. And they can't work in the studio. They hate studios from what I don't think they hate studios, but their creative process is based on having nothing but time on their hands, and they spend a lot of the reason their shit's so good is because they they log the hours. Yeah. They do it over and over until it's right. So they don't have the pressure of the studio. Just like, okay, well, it's good enough. We got the vibey take. No, they'll do 50 takes. So where they not only do they have the vibey take, but it's also pitch perfect. You can only do so. Like I'm never ever gonna to become I'm never ever going to make a blanket statement and say, yeah, no, you can't do that without a studio.
Let's talk about music as a child and parents of children. I feel so blessed that my parents, both of them, encouraged me to pick up the saxophone at a young age. And
did you play saxophone
at
a young age? Really? I didn't know that about you.
They asked us in school. I mean, again, this is privilege. And this is also a different era when music was supported in public schools a great deal. I mean, my mom still had to buy it, but...
That's what happened with me.
But I feel like it was kind of subsidized. And for sure, the teaching
certainly encouraged.
Was free.
Yeah,
the classes were free.
And I went to a public school in Denver, which was really strong public schools at the time. I don't know if it's still the case, but at the time we had good public schools in Denver in the 70s. And when you hit the 4th grade, you can learn an instrument if you want. 2 days a week you go to band, you get out of class and you go to band and you learn an instrument. And I think, and I wanted to play the saxophone from the get-go, and I think my only reference to the saxophone at that point was Richie Cunningham had played it in one episode of Happy Days. One episode of Happy Days.
I don't even remember that episode.
Do you remember Happy Days being like the Fonz was the most famous person on the planet?
Sure.
So that's the 70s, growing up. So Happy Days was my reference to the saxophone. One episode, Richie Cunningham ripped a saxophone solo. And then also the Muppets, Zoot from the Muppets.
Oh.
I seem to think maybe he was really why I dug the saxophone was Zoot from the Muppets.
Let me ask you a question that I don't mean to insult you with.
Yeah.
If I could play the saxophone,
yeah,
and I lived a half a block from Venice Beach,
yeah,
I would play for the tourists.
Oh, no, that's not insulting at all.
Is there money to be made if you're a good saxophone player? Yeah.
Busking? I mean...
Because I'd imagine a guy like you might even be able to take requests.
Not so much.
Okay, well, let's pretend you could, though.
Yeah.
And you could wow the tourists.
Yeah, usually people, when they see saxophone, they want to hear Take 5. So I guess I could play Take 5.
Can you play Take 5 for me right now?
No, I can't.
So that's why you don't want to busk for the Venice Beach tours.
It's like I'm not really a jukebox kind of guy at all. Like I don't practice enough to be a jukebox. But also I do go out and busk a little. My friend Vinny Caggiano, who's probably the best in terms of guys who are out there busking on the street, playing out on the street in the boardwalk. He's the best musician out there.
What does he play?
Plays guitar, and he loops, so he'll make loops and then play along with the loops that he makes. But he's a good friend of mine, and he's out there a lot busking, and so I'll go out and busk with him, and we'll play but we have like our own little repertoire of stuff that we do.
Can you guys get money?
Yeah, but there's not big money in busking.
Could
not
you
at all.
Could you make $50 each in an afternoon?
I've never made $50 busking.
So you can't make money then. To me, that's money. $50.
I've never. I know Vinny. I think Vinny does that. I think he can go out and make $50 busking in the afternoon.
Do you want to play something off of your new CD?
Sure.
What's the CD called?
The CD, okay, so my CD, my pandemic record, it's actually my first CD. after years and years of being a sideman, I decided it was time to make a CD. So it's called The Fool's Journey. And basically it was kind of like it's sort of this hippy dippy sort of idea from the tarot, the archetype of the fool, taking the fool's journey is what the tarot is based on.
Isn't the fool in the tarot card he's stepping off a cliff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you got it right there. Yeah. Now,
yeah, exactly.
and wow, this looks like a Vincent van Gogh background.
So I stole Vincent's Starry Night and then grafted myself onto. I created a little cliff out of the cypress tree. I turned it in Photoshop, and I'm stepping off the cliff, playing the saxophone obliviously and quixotically.
Now, when the fool is doing this on the tarot card, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
No. So he embodies each archetype of the tarot.
Now, track 3 here is Venice Lullaby.
Ah, yes.
And here we are in Venice talking about Venice.
Yeah.
Do you want to play a little of Venice Lullaby?
Sure. Although I think I did that on...
I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, yeah. If I can remember it.
How dare I ask a request from the man who wrote the song? It's very good.
Thank you.
Where can people get your CD? Does this also come out on vinyl?
I haven't pressed vinyl yet. Maybe in the future I will, but it's just too expensive to press a vinyl. Plus, it's a double album, so that's more expensive for the vinyl.
I don't even have a record player, so...
The best way to support me as an artist is to go and find it on Bandcamp.
Okay.
And buy it on Bandcamp. Matt Demerritt, Fool's Journey on Bandcamp. But you can find it on all platforms.
Matt, thank you so much for being... for playing music for me, first of all.
Yeah.
Because that's a priceless thing, and I do appreciate that.
Cool.
But thanks for spending a couple hours with me today.
It was my pleasure.
All right.
I love this shit.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, man, it's fun. This is.
And thank you for recording this.
Yeah. I'm pulling engineer duty.
Thank you, Matt.
Certainly.
Oh my God, wasn't that good? You know what else is good? Our Patreons, who warm our hearts. When you stoke us, you're saying, Tony, Jordan, how about a bacon-wrapped hot dog? Here's 2 tickets to paradise. Here's $600 to help pay your rent. Mom! Every dollar you flow our way goes right back into what you're hearing now, and it helps us keep this insane project rolling. So shout out to our Patreons, Nancy Rommelman, Allie Miller, Sean Atlow, Matt Mills, Sean Wallace, Greg and Molly, Jamie Taylor, George Wright, Mark Johnson, Kira Ann, and Barney Grinke. Want to hear your name at the end of next week's show? Go to patreon.com/hereinla and give till it hurts. We're also starting a new thing. You've heard of angel investors. Those are people who get in early to stoke a new venture. Well, this is a new venture. We're calling our angel investors Angelinos. To be an Angelino, all you have to do is PayPal us $25 or more, and we will list you in the Here in LA website forever. You'll also be given a number to denote how early you got in to make this dream come alive. Angelino number 1 is Allie Miller. Number 2, George Wright. Number 3, Rita Joanne. Just PayPal your hard-earned cash to busblog at jordancat@gmail.com. Here in LA is produced by myself, Tony Pierce, and the man who invented sunsets, Jordan Katz. Editing, mixing, and music supervision by Jordan Katz. Songs by Orgone and Jordan Katz. We usually put out new episodes whenever Jordan thinks it's right, and we also have a corresponding blog that goes with each and every interview, and it can be found at hereinla.com. I spend a lot of time on those blog posts, so please read. And if you read it, leave a comment. Tell me I look handsome. Special thanks to Cindy for creating the logo, Jen Adams for inspiring me to do this in Kim and Oz's backyard, Jordan for hooking us up with Matt, his buddy, and everyone who voted to keep rent control in place. Speaking of, don't forget to vote.